California Governor Gavin Newsom is calling the devastation in his state a climate emergency, saying that the intensity of the fires proves the debate around climate change is over. Well, for more on this part of the story, we have reached climate scientist John Abotsoglu. He's a professor of climatology at the University of California, Merced, and he joins us from Fresno, California. John, thank you so much for making time for us tonight.
Thanks, Natasha.
John, let's talk about this link between climate change and the intensity of the wildfires that we are seeing this year. Can you draw a direct connection?
Yeah, so this year we're really seeing a perfect recipe for widespread mega fires here across the West. And that's really due to a combination of unusually warm and dry conditions that have persisted for the past 2 months, punctuated by a record-setting heat wave and a couple critical fire weather events. We know that climate change has driven substantial increases in temperature. It's dried out the atmosphere, and that collectively has allowed fuels to get drier and be drier for a longer time during the fire season. So we have drier fuels, more days with critically high fire danger, and we have an abundance of ignitions out there. And our estimate is that climate change is already complicit in the events that are unfolding and the changes that we've seen across the American West.
But nevertheless, John, we hear from so many people who say they're still skeptical about the argument of climate change. You're a professor, you're dealing in this full time, this is your area of research. What do you account for this skepticism or desire to not acknowledge climate change?
Yeah, so from the perspective of wildfire is complex. And so you really need 4 ingredients for a wildfire. Vegetation is one of them. And so what we have unfolding right now here in California, Washington, and Oregon across the American West is not only a warming and drying climate, but also there's more fuel in the landscape. And that's due to a legacy of fire suppression, as well as an exclusion of indigenous practices. That's increased the accumulation of fuel. So we have more fuel and we have drier conditions. Those 2 things together are resulting in the pretty devastating images that we're seeing and the unbearable smoke that a lot of us here along the West are breathing in.
Well, talk to me about that, because you are alluding to the fact that you are in California. What's it like in Fresno where you're living and working?
Yeah, so the fires in California have been burning for about 4 weeks now. And it's made for just unbelievable air quality. Right now it feels cool and dark. It just feels like we have, our days become nights. It's just dark and it's very nasty outside in terms of air quality and human health. I think the way that we're starting to view these are very similar to how many folks that live in colder climates view snow days. These are smoke days. We are going to have to start adjusting our behavior because the future is going to be full of more of these sorts of events like we're seeing unfold right now.
The difference, though, John, between snow days and smoke days is that snow days don't cause us to have asthma attacks, don't send us to the hospital. Can we talk about what the long-term potential health impact could be of these so-called smoke days?
Yeah, and that's right. There's some initial estimates that are coming up right now that are basically saying that the mortality due to the smoke events that we've seen unfold so far is in the thousands. So that's the immediate impacts of the smoke. The residual impacts of the smoke that we experience this year after year, quite devastating, especially for a lot of the groups, a lot of the people in places like California and Washington who make their living working outdoors.
I wonder, does COVID-19, is that going to play a role in all of this? I mean, this is an airborne virus. It's all about the quality of one's breathing, how they're masking. Is there any sort of interconnection between the poor quality of air where you are and the spread of COVID-19?
That's a good question. I don't have a good answer to that. There is some evidence to suggest that areas that have had wildfire, an abundance of wildfire smoke, are more subject to getting the flu in a subsequent year. So we do have sort of this confluence of hazards right now. At the same time, we also know that COVID is displacing where people are spending their time. I will tell you, we tried to go camping last weekend and it didn't last very long because of the smoke. So it's going to be an interesting question, and there's of course issues related to whether or not COVID is altering the fire suppression ability this year as well.
Not to put too fine a point on it, John, but what happened? So you tried to go camping, and what happened?
We got chased out by the smoke. We actually started to go camping right when this fire started burning about 50 kilometers from here. That fire burned on the order of 40,000 hectare in a day, and ashes were raining down on us. And so essentially, we tried to outrun the smoke, and the smoke won. And that is a story that's ringing true for a lot of people in the West right now.
So, is it hopeless, John, or can something be done to make sure that that it isn't as bad next year, or maybe do something to fix how bad it is this year?
Yeah, the good news, I think, is that at least across much of the West, we are going to see a return of precipitation, and that'll help put the fire season to bed. In California, that's going to go on a bit longer. The long-term prospect is that these ingredients for fire are lining up more and more going forward. What we can do are essentially to tackle fuels, and that is both fuels on the ground and also fossil fuels, by reducing the effect of climate change. In the short term, though, we do need to do a better job in trying to reduce fuels, trying to reduce the occurrence of human-caused ignitions. A lot of the fires that are burning right now are human-caused. So there is hope. We're trying to get more and more different fields involved in tackling this problem, because it's not a problem that's going to be solved with any single solution.
Okay, John, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you can breathe easier very soon.
Thank you.
John Abotsiglu in Fresno, California.